And like that, we're back with another one. It is Q. You might hear Johnny in the background for a little bit, but yeah, we're gonna listen to some political conversations and have some fun for a little bit. I've been putting this one off for maybe I think it dropped last week, and I figured why not listen to it, look at it, and debate and converse the points with y'all guys. So with that said, we have Cenk Uygur. I think he is maybe the founder, the owner of the Young Turks, and he's having a conversation with or debate is one populist versus 20 Democrats and Republicans, and I'm interested to hear it. I haven't really looked at any conversations or commentary that deal with this so far. So, like, I'm be interested just to kind of see where their debate points go. I think maybe Zena. I think that maybe they have some version of a DEI conversation in here somewhere. So I'll be like, yeah, I keep using the word interested, but it'll be fun to hear where they go at with it. With that said, I'll push play.
We tried establishment Democrats, complete failures. We tried establishment Republicans, complete.
My bad, y'all. I do look at a lot of YouTube at what is that like? Yeah, 0.5 to 2 times speed. Let me slow it down so we can have like a fair listen.
Failures. We tried fake populism under Donald Trump. Complete failure. I
disagree.
So the only thing we haven't tried is left-wing populism. And you say, don't try it. Go back to the establishment Democrats. Are you crazy?
You can't vote Democrat and then say that, well, because they still support the rich and the rich still get all the tax cuts, I'm still going to cast my vote, which is the most powerful political weapon you have, to the very establishment that you're on one hand trying to tear down.
That's just weird to mention guardrails against firing people when you rejected a union at your company and fired somebody for organizing.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true. You could say that if you like.
That is true. Look it up.
Fine. So since you smeared me, let's explain. Hi, I'm Cenk Uygur. I'm host of the Young Turks live weekdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. I'm also the head of the TYT Network. I'm also founder of Just Democrats, Wolfpack, and Rebellion Pack, where we're trying to bring the country together. And here I am surrounded by 20 Democrats and Republicans, and I'm going to try to bring them together.
And I guess to start it off, I will say that, like, if there is an appeal that maybe should or would bring both sides of the party together, it would be populism. Which, like, inside, like, in short, is like being like people agreeing on popular ideas. But the issue is that left wing and right wing populism tend to look and sound a little different, but there are interesting intersection points. This is where you see, like, AOC, she will poll really good inside some Trump areas, or Bernie Sanders and Trump. How, like, Bernie would have, like, quote unquote beat Trump, but he had trouble with Democrats. Well, all that shit is its own different little circus. But like, generally speaking, there are people that where Trump speaks to, like, the common man, they appeal more to Bernie, even though that they can end up being Trump voters. And that's like the idea of populism, where, you know, being able to appeal more so to popular ideas than just specifically party lines. So it'll be interesting to hear where this conversation goes. I'll push play.
Claim number one is that Democrats and Republicans agree on economic issues and try to divide us and distract us with culture wars.
Also, and like I said, like, this will be a fun conversation. I have recently came across a concept that does have me enamored a little bit. I think it's dielectric materialism, and where a underpinning of this is the idea that you have, like, a mass of people whose solutions don't actually align with the results that they want, and they're actually in contradiction. And I think that in American society, inside, like, almost a lot of groups that you get into, you hear a lot of conversations, in my opinion, that are almost contradictory to the outcome that they want, but they haven't thought through the concept of, like, what the end goal is and what all the steps that it takes to get to the end goal inside a realistic manner, and not like in a infanticized way. That you tend to see a lot of contradictions. And like I said, like, this first claim, the Democrats and Republicans agree on economic issues. I think that this is one of those things where a lot of times there's a versus that happens in which, like, you can see a version of dialectric materialism happen where people are fighting for things that are might be more so opposed, not more so opposed, but they might contradict what their actual wants are. I'll push play.
How are you, Cenk? Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
My name's Oliver.
Hey, Oliver.
Yeah. So I guess the first place I want to start off with your claim is to first say that I think there's a grain of truth in it. And I think I would largely agree that when it comes to the system of neoliberalism, the system of capitalism, I think there can be a lot of overlap. I think where I would probably push back a little bit is when we look specifically at what policy issues get passed and how they affect people, there seems to be a very big difference. So for example, under the Biden administration, we saw with the expansion of the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid, we saw over 8 million people become eligible for Medicaid who were previously not eligible. If we contrast that right now with what's in Trump's big, beautiful bill, over a 10-year period, that would make between 15 and 16 million people ineligible for Medicaid. So it seems a crucial economic issue that affects people's ability to survive, have quality health care, live quality lives. There seems to be a stark contrast. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
So where I would disagree is the word stark. So I understand there is a contrast. That's why I vote Democrat. But these are giant buts here. So first of all, they say on Medicare, we should negotiate drug prices. The Democrats say, and then they never deliver. They didn't even try to negotiate drug prices other than on insulin and maybe 10 other drugs. And you go, well, that's pretty good. No, that's 10 drugs out of tens of thousands of drugs. At a maximum, it's only a $6 billion savings, when in reality, what we actually would do if we negotiated the drug prices is several $100 billion in savings. So what I'm saying to you is, while the Democrats do some things that are positive, they do it almost as a release valve. So they go, okay, here's another example that you mentioned, the Affordable Care Act. You know what it was called before it was called Obamacare?
You can enlighten me.
Yeah.
The Romney was a plan that was tried in a Republican state.
Exactly. It was called Romney Care.
Yeah.
And you know who came out with it? The Heritage Foundation, the same people who came out with Project 2025.
Okay.
That is a corporate release valve so that people don't build up too much pressure and go to a rebellion or a...
My bad. Let me get the fact check. That is extremely interesting. I didn't know that. The fact check says former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney signed a healthcare law in 2006 called Romney Care. Obamacare had key similarities. This is the great. Listen, that's you got to give him a +1 on that one. I did not know that Obamacare originated from the Heritage Foundation. Did not know that Mitt Romney passed his own version of Romney Care in 2006. That is an interesting concept and point. Chat, talk to me. I see a few of y'all in there. Let me know. What is y'all thoughts? The call in is there. If you want to call up and talk to me, feel free.
That is a corporate release valve so that people don't build up too much pressure and go to a rebellion or a revolution. But in the bottom line is, that was a tiny, tiny little fix thought of by a right-wing think tank. And then now when you say to negotiate drug prices, Obama never did it, even though he ran an ad called Belly where he said he was going to do it. Biden does at most 6% of it. The Democrats are constantly doing 5 to 10% as a little release valve, but keep the machine going exactly as it is.
And we can totally agree that there should be more that's done. I guess maybe I was taking your claim too literally, which is that Democrats and Republicans agree on economic issues. And maybe there's a qualify in there. Is it largely agree? Is it mainly agree?
It's definitely large. Yeah, okay. It's not 100% agree. Otherwise, it would be too obvious. But is it true that they largely agree? Of course. So I'll give you many other examples. Paid family leaves at 84%. Yet the Democrats never seem to be able to pass it. Why do they never pass it? Because they're not trying. They said they do the public option. Joe Biden didn't even announce them, introduce the public option. Why? Because they agree with Republicans.
Well, I don't think they agree with Republicans necessarily. I just think that sometimes it's hard to pass legislation in a bitterly divided Congress. Would you acknowledge that it's difficult very often in order to get things done? You don't.
No. See, that is the number one excuse Democrats use. Oh, golly, gee, there was nothing we could do. And they sing, there was nothing we could do. There was nothing we could do. In reality, he didn't even try for the public option, Biden. He didn't introduce it. So that pulls it over 70%. Why not try?
Sure.
$15 minimum wage. The Republicans didn't take that out of the bill. Joe Biden took it out of the bill. You see those things where you can tell intent, and the intent is he actually agrees with the donor class and the Republicans. He doesn't want those things. If you can't pass a bill at 84%, then are you saying the Democrats are the most incompetent politicians in history?
I'm not saying they're the most incompetent party, and I'm also not saying they're perfect. I think that we risk running into an issue where we equate the two parties as being virtually the same, which leads people to not voting whatsoever at all because they think the whole class is against them. And I'm in complete agreement with you that the two-party system is fundamentally broken and that Democrats in a lot of ways have a lot of the same issues. I guess what I predominantly have an issue with is those who maybe don't take the time to have nuance in the discussion and just say, oh, they agree on economic issues and they only want to divide us on cultural issues.
Brother, so here's the difference.
It's important to make that because otherwise people stay home. They don't vote. And then we're in the situation that we're in right now when a lot of people don't end up voting.
No, but Oliver, so let me tell you my perspective on it. That's really important.
Okay.
So Democrats always say, hey, look, there's a 5 to 10% difference. So you should vote for us.
Okay.
But they don't quite say it that way. You understand that. I understand that. A lot of people here understand that. But
marketing is a thing.
Right. But but hold on. This is super important.
Okay.
But they tell the voters, we're going to make a big difference. We're going to do minimum wage. We're going to do public option. We're going to do paid family leave.
Yes.
And when they don't, people get disappointed and disappointed. And that leads them to not voting. That leads them to hating the Democratic Party. What I'm saying is go with populist left. That is the one thing that has not been tried. We would actually do the bills. We do the bills. Otherwise, then you're the same as the Republicans.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver.
1-0. Yeah, it's a 1-0. We give our guy the dub on that one. Well, I don't know if it's our guy, but Cenk gets the dub on that one.
Hey, Cenk.
Listen, that shit is a blood sport. Shout out to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Getting that chair, that shit is a blood sport.
Nice to meet you.
Great to be speaking with you. I agree with your overall term here. I would say that at the end goal, they agree that economically, we all want the same things, right? But the way we get it is two completely different economical viewpoints. We have the left that tends to be more socialist and communist, then we have the right that is more crony capitalist.
Okay.
The left wants to take your taxes and they want to distribute it the way they want.
Yeah.
The right wants you to keep your taxes right now. They want you to keep your overtime taxes. They want you to keep your taxes on tips. So what is your
So first of all, brother, you got to stop saying socialism and communism. None of the
Why is that?
Because none of the Democratic politicians are in favor of that. They're actually
Bernie's quite literally socialist.
No. So he says he's a democratic socialist. Even he doesn't really go towards what you would consider socialism because you're putting socialism and communism in the same bucket where they don't belong. None of them are in favor of ending corporations, ending capital, etc. In fact, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, their number one problem is that they're corporatists, not that they're socialists or communists.
No,
and this does end up being like one of those cruxes of a bit of the conversation. I think most people don't really understand socialism and communism and the differences between the two. But the other side of it would be, we'll just leave it at that. I'm gonna push play. Let us keep rolling.
They will do whatever corporate on socialism because you're putting socialism and communism in the same bucket where they don't belong. None of them are in favor of ending corporations, ending capital, etc. In fact, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, their number one problem is that they're corporatists, not that they're socialists or communists.
No,
maybe that's what I was going to say. Corporatocracy. I think that in itself, like, I'm sure he's going to get into the donor class and the whole little thing, but the more you understand politics, the more you understand that there's leverage in the money play. And within that, I think that, like you see a lot of where these traditional politicians fall victim to, where corporatocracy rules above, like, whether you want to say a democracy or capitalism, XYZ, when we talk about what's getting done for the common man, the common good. And I guess like we could lean there at the moment and see where they kind of build that.
But
They
literally
will
wanted to
do
end-
whatever corporate donors tell them to do.
They wanted to
That is
end
the exact
businesses over
opposite of
vaccine
communism.
mandates.
Yeah,
That was
no, brother.
yeah, no.
But that's drug companies. They're doing the exact opposite of communism. They're saying corporate donors, we will do whatever you corporations want. So when you turn to the Republicans, it's the same thing as Oliver. They have a 5 to 10% release valve with Donald Trump now. He's pretending to be a populist. So he goes, oh my God.
Donald Trump isn't
even
pretending he is a populist.
Well, look at
He
the
just
big,
won the popular
Look,
vote, both
yeah.
left and right.
No,
in his
no, no,
direction.
no.
And see that is a part of the conversation right there, right? Where like Donald Trump could be a populist. Like he has, like he ran on a populist agenda. The issue right now with him and MAGA, generally speaking, ends up being the fact that eventually with populism is that they want you to cash in on the populism. And with him, his issue is that he has not yet cashed in on it. And so when you look at like the Epstein files, didn't really cash in on it. The tariffs, especially how he's explained it, he'll pump fake it, but he didn't necessarily cash in on it. Like there's a bunch of things with him where he like, what is it? I'm bringing back manufacturing. I'm bringing back oil jobs. I'm bringing back coal mining. Like these are populist ideas that appeal to the specific people inside the places that he wants to get these votes from. But you haven't seen intentionality to actually get these things done. The reality is that he also like almost calls you stupid for like believing it. When you go into what he said, whether it was like inflation with the groceries, he was like, that should sound like I ran on that because it won me points. I said it in it and it spiked. But on day one, nobody really believed that I would actually bring down grocery prices, the price of eggs or whatever. And that's where I think that there is benefit in a politician and the populist appeal. And that's what you see often is the populist appeal. You don't necessarily see like pure populism as much as like the impact of the populist appeal, and where this is the same thing that Democrats often consistently get minorities with when it comes down to just the populist appeal. And this is where like they try to appeal to populism within like specific demographics within their group, which is like the LGBTQ. This is within like the black and brown community. Like they do a bunch of different populist appeals in which they think that it will help win them specific groups when it comes down to the elections. I'll push.
Hold on. So when you talk about that bill, the budget bill, that is not big or beautiful. Well, it is big, but it's definitely not beautiful. Sure. The majority of the tax cuts go, of course, as always, to the rich, right? But they put in a tiny release valve of, we'll help the middle class a little bit on tips and overtime. Whether that even stays in the bill is a different question.
How come every time a Republican's
Here,
in
let me tell you a fact.
I make more money and I spend less in taxes?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you a fact. So what they do is they throw a little morsel at you, as Obama and Biden throw a little morsel on you for social policies, as we discussed earlier. But the overwhelming majority always goes to the rich. For example, in this bill, they're cutting Medicaid and SNAP by $1.1 trillion. Do you know how much is going to people making above $500,000 a year in tax cuts? $1.1 trillion. Okay? So they're literally taking from the poorest people and giving it to the richest people,
which is what the liberals have been doing forever. So what's the difference?
How are they doing? So no, brother, what I'm saying is you're actually proving my point. Democrats and Republicans constantly say that they have giant differences. Then what did the Republicans do? They do massive tax cuts for the rich. And then Obama, by the way, came in and actually made Bush's tax cuts permanent, which cost us even more than the original Bush tax cuts did. So there's a lot of theater about how they disagree. But at the end of the day,
why do
the
me
rich
as a
always
business
get tax
owner
cuts.
Save more money when Republicans are in office? Why do me as a business owner continue to save money?
So you know why? So I'm a small business owner. So we save a little bit of money. The giant corporations save a ton of money.
Isn't it better if everybody saves money?
No, it's not.
Why not? That makes no sense.
No, brother, it's easy to say, okay, then we shouldn't have any roads, bridges, cops, fire departments.
Nobody's saying that. We just don't want our money going to
you say there's we shouldn't have any tax.
We just don't.
And I guess that's the nuance, right? If you're looking at it, when we get into like the whole like the tax thing. I'll push.
We want our money going to foreign countries.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
On drag events.
And by the way, that's another thing that proves my point. Republicans and Democrats always do whatever AIPAC tells them. So that is a foreign
that's
government.
A whole different argument.
No, it's not an argument.
Hey, chat, talk to me. I see y'all in here. Yeah, we got to call in. Let me know what you agree with, disagree with. I'll give some commentary as we kind of go through. I think that this is close to a dub. I wouldn't like give him a full-fledged one. I think they argued fair points. I'll push play. We can kind of keep rolling. But yeah, talk to me, chat. The call-in is there if y'all want to have some dialogue as we watch through this.
The same argument. It's the donor class.
Thank you, Cenk.
Yeah.
Hey man, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So when you talk about this concept of like a release valve, it seems like you're downplaying very relevant and very important differences that exist between the parties. So the Affordable Care Act, you understand that expanded coverage to like millions of people. More people got Medicaid, premiums are subsidized. Like this is good policy. And I agree with you. Sometimes in many cases, Democrats lack a spine. They don't push hard enough. But I think chalking that up to like, they're pretty much the same. There's just a little release valve difference is a little bit reductive.
Yeah, it's not at all reductive. And the Affordable Care Act is a perfect example of it. Yeah. So you're right. It was better than the previous system because the previous system had pre-existing conditions and you can get blocked for that. And the American people despise that. So it needed to be changed. Yeah. That is part of the reason why a right-wing think tank, Heritage Foundation, came up with Romney Care. It's a release valve. And it's a Republican idea. Then Mitt Romney took it and passed it in Massachusetts. That's why it's called Romney Care. Then Obama and Romney ran a campaign where they pretended to be on exact opposite ends of the spectrum with the same exact healthcare plan. Literally the same exact healthcare plan.
Do you think the ACA is like a right-wing health insurance plan?
It was literally created by a right-wing think tank,
the
Heritage
Republicans right now in
yes.
Congress are trying to push a reconciliation bill that literally guts Medicaid when the ACA expanded Medicaid.
Yes. So they always move the goalposts. So what do? They bring in, okay, here's our release valve. Okay, now the American people are still mad. Of course they are, because, and here, let's talk about the next steps that happened. Obama said, oh yeah, we might do the public option, which would have been not universal health care, but a good step forward. Right. I was there. Young Turk's been around forever. And I was like, yes, you got to do the public option. Then Obama says publicly, oh, I guess we can't do the public option. Wink, and they immediately took it out of the bill. Right? What's that?
That's because of Joe Lieberman, right? But 59 other Democrats would have voted for the public option.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So that they always, hold on, they always have an excuse. So right now, under Biden, the excuse was, oh, we don't have enough senators. Oh, golly, gee.
That's how you pass laws, though.
The filibuster and the parliamentarian. And then under Obama, they had 60. They could pass anything they wanted. They're like, let's take a really, really long time with Romney Care. Oh, oops, we ran out of our 60. Things changed. Okay, now the Republicans are ignoring the parliamentarian when they're trying to pass this bill. So the Democrats keep finding excuses. Why did they take the public option out of the bill?
You think Obama
Why did they
didn't
never
want
introduce the public option back again? I don't think the Democrats want the public option at all.
When 59 senators said we'll vote yes on this, and Lieberman
That's what I'm trying to tell you, brother. They don't mean it. So let me give you two examples.
Where are you getting that from?
Hey, chat, talk to me. Talk to me. I see y'all in here. Talk to me.
Where am I getting it from?
If Lieberman agreed,
where am I getting it from? Number one,
option?
The public option polls at over 70%. They didn't even try to pass it.
Sure, but
number two, when
policy,
Biden came into office, said he was going to do public option,
yeah,
and then he lied, and he never once introduced
Biden had, like, no
if he never once
capital
introduced
compared to Obama.
Oh, now they don't have political capital. Golly gee,
these are the realities of how you pass
oh my God, I can't. The voters are sick of I can't.
It's not.
Why don't you actually try?
It's more
so
difficult.
tell me why they're such losers. They can't pass paid family leave at 84%. Are they losers, or do they actually secretly agree with the Republicans
Cenk,
and they don't want any of this because they're corporate donors?
I agree with you on policy. I want paid family leave. I want single payer health care. But this is not like super easy to pass. You're like, if they just all hold their hands and
I can get it passed in 2 weeks.
We're going to get like
2 weeks. Okay, so here's how you do it. Guys, you see, you've been taught by mainstream media and Democratic politicians to accept failure. Oh my God, there's nothing we can do to pass it. There's nothing. Here's how what you do.
You can pass it, but it's
super easy.
It's not
easy. Listen. Paid family leave is at 84. Why do I keep insisting on that? Because here's what you would do. You would introduce it. 74% of Republican voters want it. And then you would say, I dare you to vote against it. If you vote against it, you're voting against 84% of Americans and you will lose your next election. I will campaign against you. I will find a Republican to campaign against you.
No.
And then, but you say, no, God, don't even try. Don't even
these
try.
policies-
Oh, we have these giant
Hold on,
differences, but we never pass our bills.
say
We never
Republicans-
even try. And who took out $15 minimum wage? Joe Biden took out $15 minimum wage. So they never
say-
meet it, brother. When is it going to get through
Hold
to you
on.
that they don't
You
pass
say
it
that
for a
Republicans
reason?
agree with us. They agree nominally. I'll give you a great example of this. If you poll Republicans, should we cut Medicaid? They say no. When Medicaid's actually cut and you poll them, they're just cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. So like nominally, yes, everyone agrees universal health care is good. When you get into the nitty gritty of actual policy, it gets a lot more complicated. I agree. Democrats should fight much harder, use the bully pulpit, campaign on these issues. But the idea that they're willfully, purposefully sabotaging themselves, some of them, sure, but this is not as easy as you're painting it out to be.
Okay, so number one on minimum wage, we at the Young Turks fought for Bernie to put it back in and at least get a vote. Okay, it got a vote. And guess what happened? The 8 Democratic senators who were pretending to be in favor of it all of a sudden voted with the Republicans. They had more than enough to block it because the Democrats don't mean it. They always do rotating villains. So, brother, at what point are you going to
When you
say
have
the
slim-
failure is on purpose and not, golly gee, they're the Washington Generals against the Harlem Globetrotters?
when you have slim majorities, paradigm shifting policies just harder to
But
pass.
60 is not a slim majority. You constantly
didn't
make
have 60.
excuses.
The
Obama had
$15
$60
minimum
and he
wage.
still didn't do it. If they could have 80 and you'd still find
the
an
ACA was
excuse.
massive legislation that he got with 60.
Yes,
60
beautiful
votes.
Romney Care from Heritage Foundation.
I like bro. I think at best that's a draw, but yeah, I think that he does like poke at some of the chinks in Chink's armor. No pun intended. When you just look at like the appeal that they're intentionally doing this, but the reality would be like, you know, like what, even if you go with like the Romney Care, Obamacare, like him getting that pass still wasn't an easy feat. Even if we can say that it was introduced by Mitt Romney and came from the Heritage Foundation, and fighting against what at that moment the Republican populace was speaking to, thinking that they wanted. I think that it's his own small little battle.
Thank you, man.
And like there's a space where you also have to believe that there is a specific conglomerate of intentional corrupt cabal happening inside Washington. Like there's a conglomerate of corruption that splits both sides of the party lines, where there's intentionality of like just fucking over like the American person to, you know what I mean, kind of believe what Chink says. In which I'm not saying that he's wrong or right. But if you look at, or if you attempt to address politics at some version of face value, which if you're going to vote for Republican or Democrat, you probably have to, then, you know, I see what bro was talking about.
Yeah. How are you?
Hey there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So you raised a very interesting point when you said that Democrats and Republicans agree essentially on the same issues and that they want to distract us with culture wars. The question that I would raise is, why are culture wars a distraction when they are such a vital issue? It's important to myself as a conservative, and I'm quite certain to every Democrat in this room. Issues like abortion, social justice, or things that affect us in ways that maybe some policies only benefit the rich. Why should we not focus on things that benefit Americans every day and that could affect women's bodies or gay people's right to get married or maintain the right?
Yeah. So I'm not saying that social issues are not important. That's why I vote Democrat instead of Republican, because I believe women should have the right to an abortion and many of the other things that are on the left. Okay. But at the same time, when you talk about trans sports, for example, do you know how many trans athletes there are in the NCAAs?
No, I don't.
10 out of 500,000 athletes. Okay. So for 10 people, we had this giant debate, and the
oh man, we're about to get there. This is gonna be one of them interesting ones. Piers Morgan did a very interesting conversation recently with Nothing But Democrats, where they kind of dove into a little bit of this right here. And if I was to give my quick personal opinion, I would say that I think that Democrats, like, they just don't know how to actually attack the issue, because of the reality is that most Democrats don't care about the trans issue. It is not something that they like hedge any of their bets on. But what you'll see conservatives do, and Piers Morgan does this amazingly when he has the left on is like what they won't do is just give like a fair regular answer to it. And because of that, it ends up being like this space where when it comes to like just take like the social war thing of like the trans thing. I think that most Democrats really don't care. And if anything, like they understand and probably side with like the general consensus of like, hey, just let women do their own shit and let men do their own shit and play sports inside the sport that you was biologically born as. I think that that's almost like the American consensus. But when you like either placate or don't answer to the concept, I think that it allows for a very simple straw man to be built. Where, for example, I don't think Kamala ever ran or spoke anything about trans at all. But because she didn't come out and be like, hey, that's not the shit I'm on, because of like she didn't want to push back against a certain part of her constituency, it hurt her. And it hurt her fairly badly. Because of what Trump and them, like they ran them the ads during the Super Bowl, like, hey, Kamala's for them and they, Trump is for you. And shit like that, for a policy that Trump also had under his presidency. And that's like the interesting thing is that Democrats tend to downplay the impact of a lot of like these social culture wars. That's what they say. A lot of the culture war issues, in which it does have a really big impact. But the issue is that for them, they don't care to the point that the Republicans push the thing. And that's where like the scale comes, where Republicans make it and they paint it like the Gene ad with Sydney Sweeney. You actually really didn't see a lot of Democrats having any real issue with the ad. And it was barely, unless it was like progressive left spoke about. But what the right did well was that they was able to market it as a culture war issue. And I think that they won the battle over that. I'll push play.
Far right were like, no, that's it. This is what the Democratic Party is all about. And the far left was like, yes, that is all we're about. And this is about vulnerable communities and you have to protect them. So this is the hill we're going to die on. And we're going to talk about this nonstop. Okay. But meanwhile, we're getting robbed every single administration. Trillions of dollars in tax cuts under Republicans and under Obama. Tax cut after tax cut for rich, for the corporations, deregulation after deregulation. You know why they want to split us? They want you to fight left and right. They want you to look left and right. They don't want you to look up. Look up. Okay.
Well, of course, having to look up is very vital. Okay. My master always tells us to look up. That's why I wear the cross. But the point that I'm making is that social issues, in order to really, wouldn't it make sense to effectively mobilize people? You should start with things that can touch them every single day. Social issues impact children, women, men, all of us across all ages and across all ideologies. Shouldn't it be for the American population, whose average attention span is maybe 43 to 56 seconds at best, to influence them politically? Wouldn't it be best to start with something like a social issue that would then raise their awareness to issues dealing with the rich and issues dealing with taxes? Why not?
Because that splits us. It splits us on purpose. Those don't unify. I say the exact opposite. Why don't you start on bills we all agree on that have over 70% popularity, like getting money out of politics, anti-war, lowering drug prices through Medicare? Instead, you get to social issues. Here, I'll give you, I'm from a vulnerable community. I'm from a Muslim background, right? But if I told Democrats, I want you to focus only on Muslim rights, that'd be mental. Don't do that. I'm not saying don't care about Muslim rights. I want you to care about that. I want everyone to have 100% same rights.
What I'm saying is, why
build credibility by actually delivering for all of the American people. We raised all of your wages. We brought down drug prices for everyone, for Republicans and Democrats.
But by your logic, that could undermine certain things, like going back in history for a second here, the civil rights movement, things like that, which were inherently social and economic issues in combination. Why not? My question is, why not work with both of those issues side by side? Why are you deliberately attempting to prioritize one over the other?
No. So what I'm saying to you, brother, is two things. Number one, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. So you don't have to give up Muslim rights. You don't have to give up civil rights. You don't have to stop worrying about that, etc. You can fight on that, but don't forget, you're not supposed to hate the other side. They want you to hate the other side. Stop hating the other side. Fight on the issues you don't agree on. And then on the things you do agree on, stop listening to establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats that divide you so that you never realize, hey, why are most of the tax cuts going to the rich? Why are corporations getting every break? Why is it that in every bill, all the subsidies go to oil companies, banks, etc.?
Well, that's largely due to
so
the
why
fact.
don't we unite on the things we agree on first?
But by your own logic, that does a disservice to the fact that it doesn't do a disservice. It acknowledges the fact that as you still vote Democrat, you are still in essence supporting the very system that you're at the same time talking about tearing down. So it's a lot of double talk, is it not?
No, what I do
You
is
can't vote Democrat and then say that, well, because they still support the rich and the rich still get all the tax cuts, I'm still going to cast my vote, which is the most powerful political weapon you have, to the very establishment that you're on one hand trying to tear down.
That's why primaries are critical. What if I want one thing for you guys all to think about is you must vote in your primaries, because the mainstream media doesn't want you voting in the primaries, because that's where you can make real change. So that's why they love it when you go, oh, well, if you don't vote for a Democrat, Trump's going to be in office and Trump's the boogeyman, and the Republicans will say likewise, right? So go vote in your primaries so you don't have to worry about Democrats or Republicans. You're still in the same party, but get rid of the bums who are for corporate donors who always serve donors, and get people that you love on both economic issues and social issues. You don't have to give up one, but you have to insist on them representing you and not the donor class.
Very great conversation, brother.
Thank you. Brother.
Yeah, it was really good.
Hello.
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Bring the paint.
So I'm not going to disagree with you that in every case, Democrats don't go after the most radical economic policy. One example that
Not radical. They all pull over 70%.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm a Democrat myself. I agree with a lot of what you say. One example of what you said before is that Joe Biden wanted to cut the corporate or raise the corporate income tax to 28% instead of back to 35%. However, I think that one point to consider would be the fact that a lot of the times Democrats are having to clean up the mess that Republicans made. And when someone like Joe Biden only has 2 years of adequate Senate support, right, it's very difficult to argue that he should be pursuing farther left tactics when we're just trying to get a reconciliation bill passed that can be supported by Joe Manchin, right? The economy was completely destroyed in 2020 after COVID. It was completely destroyed in 2007 after Obama. So there has to be a little give there.
So on economic issues, what I'm telling you, brother, is that they're playing good cop, bad cop on you, on all of us. Okay. So the tax cuts is a perfect example. So you're right. Donald Trump takes it from 35 to 21. It's a massive corporate tax cut. That's on Trump. That's on the Republicans. Then Joe Biden says, well, I'm going to fight that. And he gets a lot of votes to go fight that. And he says, I'm going to bring it back up to 28%. I'm like, wait, it was at 35. So already he's conceding, yeah, I love corporate tax, corporate tax cuts.
Yeah.
Hold on. Then he says, oh, well, Joe Manchin wants to make it 25. So golly gee, I don't have a choice, 25. Then did he fight for 25? No, he never introduced it, never fought for 25. So you tell me, Joe Biden had 4 years and kept it at 21% and never even tried.
Well, realistically, he had 2 years to get a bill passed. It's the truth. At the end of the day, right, if Joe Manchin sticks it somewhere and he says, well, okay, maybe I'll let you have an expansion of the child tax credit, for example, if you keep it at 21. We don't know all the backdoor negotiations that happened between Joe Biden and Joe Manchin. At the end of the day, right, you can't have everything you want, whether you're Joe Manchin or Joe Biden.
Did you ever consider that they don't mean it? The reason that Joe Biden never tried to raise corporate taxes is because he doesn't want corporate taxes to go up. It was all a trick. It was all a game played on all of us.
No, I don't buy it.
No, I know. There was nothing they could do. That's why they didn't even bother trying. They never bothered trying on any of this. And you keep insisting, well, good enough. I'll take my 5% change. Thank you, sir. May I have another, sir? So please, for God's sake, wake up and unite to actually get economic policies that we love. The whole country wants.
You can say
except those corrupt politicians.
In West Virginia, Kamala Harris lost by 30 points. Okay. If you put someone that is to the left of Kamala Harris on any economic issue, they're going to lose by that same margin.
You're totally wrong. Do you know what percentage of Americans want to not cut taxes on the rich, but raise taxes on the rich?
Probably all of them when you ask it that way.
No.
Yeah. And yeah, I disagree with skinny guy right here, Earthworm Jim. Yeah, I think that there are some, and this is where you say like some, not all. There are some specific left progressive policies, and this is where AOC, like, she can sell out stadiums inside red states. Like, there is populist, progressive. I didn't mean to say socialist, but there are populist progressive policies that a lot of people within a specific class group, not specifically like who you vote for, but within a specific class group that they all agree on. And I think that's where homie right here is he's a little off at.
Oh, no. What do you mean? On television, they constantly say, oh, cutting taxes is popular. Raising taxes is very unpopular. That's not true. Raising taxes on the rich polls at 76%. You would win West Virginia. You would win Kentucky if you ran on populist campaign. If you said, yes, I'm going to raise taxes on the rich. Yes, I'm going to give you lower drug prices. Yes, I'm going to give you higher wages. But the Democrats don't say that. They say, oh, I'm going to try a little bit, and then I'm not even going to introduce any of those bills. I don't think the lens that you're seeing it through is the lens that a lot of voters see it through when they're going to vote for people like Joe Manchin, people that will give us a Senate majority. All right, thank you.
Surrounded is now a podcast available wherever you listen. Search Surrounded, plug in, and stay part of the conversation.
It's not a mission. My next claim is Democrats don't want to pass their agenda. It's a marketing ploy, not a mission.
Shout out to Zena. This is the one I've been with.
Nice to meet you, Zena.
Awesome. So I think that we largely agree, like kind of others have said. I just like want a little clarity on understanding how Democrats like water down their social issues, things like DEI and other measures to kind of bridge the gap that we've seen in like racial disparity, for example. How, in your worldview, do we reconcile such issues?
So in the beginning, did we need
how?
Yeah.
Hi, Zena. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Zena.
Awesome. So I think that we largely agree, like kind of others have said. I just like want a little clarity on understanding how Democrats like water down their.
And if you watched the Jordan Peterson one, she's the one that he brought back up, Zena.
Their social issues, things like DEI and other measures to kind of bridge the gap that we've seen in like racial disparity, for example. How, in your worldview, do we reconcile such issues?
So in the beginning, did we need to?
Yes. That is a very great populist. All right, let's see where he
affirmative action, definitely, because what happened before the civil rights movement was, so let's say that your firefighters or your longshoremen, those are really good jobs. They pay pretty well. They're good blue collar jobs. What do you want to do? You want to pass it on to your kids because you're normal, right? That's the type of thing that you want to do. But unfortunately, at that point, almost all the jobs are held by white people. So we do affirmative action because, guys, we got to let others in. Otherwise, it's not fair, right? And so that makes sense. But then over the course of decade after decade after decade, we wind up with DEI. And DEI has some good things in it, but it also had some abuses in it. We covered it on the Young Turks. There'd be situations where a white woman would say, okay, now can I tell you my perspective? And
facts, Steve. Shout out, Steve. Let me rewind this a little bit.
But unfortunately, at that point, almost what happened before the civil rights movement was, so let's say that your firefighters or your longshoremen, those are really good jobs. They pay pretty well. They're good blue collar jobs. What do you want to do? You want to pass it on to your kids because you're normal, right? That's the type of thing that you want to do. But unfortunately, at that point, almost all the jobs are held by white people. So we do affirmative action because, guys, we got to let others in. Otherwise, it's not fair, right? And so that makes sense. But then over the course of decade after decade after decade, we wind up with DEI. And DEI has some good things in it, but it also had some abuses in it. We covered it on the Young Turks. There'd be situations where a white woman would say, okay, now can I tell you my perspective? And they would say, no, shut up. Your job is to learn. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay.
So are you talking about?
We are about to get into a fun situation right here. It looks like. I am interested to see where this lands at. All right, let's see. Oh shit! All right.
Situations where a white woman would say, "Okay, now can I tell you my perspective?" And they would say, "No, shut up. Your job is to learn." No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay.
So are you talking about like fringe cases in which like someone would say that they feel unfairly treated by DI? Because I think in any type of law that we're going to see passed, we're going to see fringe cases.
This is a great way to attack it. Point out the fact that what you're speaking about is an outlier. Let's see where she keeps going at.
in which the law is I guess manipulated in some case to negatively affect certain groups. So I think that we see like largely the effect on the Black population is extremely substantial and extremely important. For example, we see that like I think there's a study done. I don't remember if it was 2015 or 2002, but it was a study done where they simulated a class-based DEI program instead of race. What we found was equally qualified Black individuals were much less likely to be chosen on this class-based protocol, and we saw that like the protocol actually represented a lot less of the Black population that exists in this country, whereas DEI ensures that we have a representative pool of applicants and admitted students in our colleges, which is extremely important.
So look, again,
it'll be interesting. Cenk, you have yourself in a pickle. What is your response, my boy?
DEI and affirmative action had their role, had their place, and oftentimes
I'm saying that they have a role now.
So, but what it also does at the same time, though, is serves to divide us. And so, look, if you say to me, hey, maybe Muslims have
representation divides us. He's getting himself again. Cenk is getting himself into a interesting pickle again, where the DEI conversation in itself is its own, interesting mix where there's parts to shout out AP. Listen, brother, that is a Cenk ad lib that he loves to throw out there. Well, yeah, no, I think that DEI has a positive and a negative side to it, and even like the relinquishing of DEI, or I guess like the ending of DEI, I guess maybe you would say, like you see it on multiple sides where there's a positive and negative. Like you don't have to necessarily, like we all understand that generally speaking, white women is going to be like the biggest benefactor of DEI. And because of that, I don't know if, and this is where like the interesting conversation ends up being, where because of they are the biggest benefactor of DEI, does that mean that you throw away the entire DEI, or should you reform it? Because of, even with them being the biggest benefactor, are there beneficiaries that aren't white women? Are Black women, or are Black men, or like if you want to go the brown and whatever other route, minority route, is there beneficiality to it? And this is where you see like in Harvard, where the agents, they fought against it, and it was like DEI is letting the Black folk in, but like we by merit stances would get ourselves into Harvard at a higher rate if we just got rid of affirmative action and DEI. And then they end up seeing that, damn, I guess them other people, they can be a little racist too. Maybe they just don't want to let us in, even though like we on majority have higher test scores and meet the metrics in which y'all are asking for. So you know what? Maybe that DEI, that affirmative action, maybe we got to bring that back. And like I said, like it ends up being like a very interesting conundrum where pretending that nepotism and different versions of that doesn't exist is its own conversation. When we speak about the merit in which people will be able to achieve in America, and what capitalism will allow. I'll push play.
Have a disadvantage, even if you DEI and affirmative action had their role, had their place, and oftentimes
I'm saying that they have a role now.
So, but what it also does at this.
Shout out to Steve. Steve said he's basically saying if I don't know what Tiff, if the whites don't like it, don't do it. And that's kind of where like that's a bit of where his version of populism seems to land, in my opinion. And that's why I was saying like he kind of gets himself into an interesting pickle. Pause, but like an interesting like space right here where appreciate it, Steve. Yeah, he gets himself into an interesting space because of populism and like minority interest does not necessarily align. And like this conversation right here kind of exploits that whole concept. Didi, I just showed that Black people were capable of doing jobs that you gave them maybe saying DEI just showed that black people are capable of doing jobs that you gave them a chance to do, but it benefited white women the most, but Asians made an ass out of them. Oh, that's pretty much what I was saying. Yeah, I think that we aligned. I'll push play. We can keep listening.
Same time, though, it serves to divide us. And so
Republicans and
that's like he's just diving in interesting spaces where saying race is served to divide us. I think that on its face is true. But then when we get into populism and then we look at what the majority is, it still doesn't necessarily have it doesn't have to have the ability to represent the minority. And typically that's kind of what DEI is. Hey chat, talk to me. I'll throw the call-in link in there again. If you have some pushback to me, I would love to hear the conversation.
And admitted students in our colleges, which is extremely important.
So look, again, DEI and affirmative action had their role, had their place, and oftentimes
I'm saying that they have a role now.
So, but what it also does at the same time, though, is serves to divide us. And so, look, if you say to me, hey, maybe Muslims have a disadvantage, even if you take class into account. So should we give a little bit of extra weight to Muslim candidates? I would say absolutely not.
Why not?
Do not do that, because then what it does is it makes everyone bitter about the Muslim candidates.
Here's the problem,
and it makes them seem like they.
Yeah. See. All right. Let me hear where she goes. But the issue is that within that only is an appeal to the majority, because if they are the people in power, they are like the brokers of whether you want to say like the institution, like say a Harvard or whoever. There's no reason for them to appeal to the needs, the wants, and the value of an equally like qualified minority. Like bias and nepotism is a real thing. So like it's hard to. I'll push play. Let's see where he lands at.
Muslim candidates, I would say absolutely not.
Why not?
Do not do that, because then what it does is it makes everyone bitter about the Muslim candidates.
Here's the problem.
Here's
what I find super important.
In fact, they did earn
what you're explaining is the response to the policy, and you're not actually digging at the policy in of itself. You're saying because people will come out and be, racist or Islamophobic or whatever it might be because of a policy that is ensuring equality of opportunity, we should cancel the policy. But that is not a critique of the policy. That's a critique of the Republican or usually conservative response to said policy. So do you have a problem with the policy or the response?
So my point here is that this is among the different things that the Democrats do, where they say, hey, I think they're being performative. They say, oh, we're in favor of DEI. Performative, but
I like Zena. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is my second time seeing her on here. I think that she presents fair pushback. Might not necessarily agree with all her pushback, but she was on here. She was on the Jordan Peterson one. And yeah, I'll push play.
But what it actually, what the thing that would help African American community, Latino community, Muslim community, all those communities is actually raising the minimum wage, lowering drug prices. But we never do the material help. We never do the things that equal things out economically.
You still haven't critiqued the policy in of itself. You're saying.
Right. She's kind of attacking the crux of it, because what he's saying is that, like, so I should raise the minimal standards instead of allowing access to the maximum outcomes. And that in itself, you know what I mean? Like that is like selling a pipe dream to minorities. If you just take like what he's saying in general, if you understand like the system of capitalism, nepotism, and like, hell, you can throw classes, like let's throw all the isms in there. What he's selling is a pipe dream then. Like, if you think that like trickle down economics is going to work for the poor man, in essence, and the poor man being minorities. Yeah, she might have been on the Candace Owens one. I can't remember her argument on the Candace one. Shout out Donna Murphy. Shout out Unc. Majid Sess. Shout out Steve. Shout out to the guys.
People will get angry if we come out and we promote these different metrics of
No, I
helping
am
people.
critiquing the policy.
So what
I'm
exactly
saying
about
that
the policy is
because
negative?
it divides us.
How does
And
the
it's-
policy
so
divide?
even though it has
By
a
saying that
ben-
racism exists?
Yeah. So
But racism-
no,
but
but
race
not by
does
saying that
exist.
racism exists. So you have to
Okay.
acknowledge reality, right? What you're saying is now we're going to put black people in this category. We're going to put white people in this category. we're gonna
Because
put
there are
different groups.
categories that,
Okay,
that
so
exist
hold on,
now
hold
at a
on.
subconscious level that we characterize
So even
each
if
other
you
by.
get a benefit from that, you say, hey, I reduced racism by 10%, 20%, etc. What you're doing is you're not noticing the giant downside of that, which is then people start to view each other as black, white,
We've
Asian,
always done that. That's
etc.
happening unconsciously
But
all the time.
You're right, but what I would love
So we have
is
to-
for
Hey, good God. But my dog Cenk, I didn't know that he was this lost when it came down to racial politics, I guess maybe you can kind of frame it as. Like this is really, really interesting as he continues to make points. Shout out to our guy Steve. Steve, what's going on, brother?
Yo, what's good?
Not much.
Cenk should just leave this topic alone. Like, I get what he's trying to say, but it just sounds so much like capitulation when he talk about it. Like he, like he say, he don't actually have a critique of said policy. He got a critique of how people respond to said policy.
Yeah.
Because of their response, we shouldn't do X, Y, Z. Now imagine if we had held that logic during the civil rights era.
Right.
That we shouldn't do civil rights because of the
It might make white people mad.
of the majority.
Right.
Like we can critique how it's implemented, how it's done. Do we feel like black people should be more adequately treated under this DEI programs? That's a whole different conversation. But to say that just to do away with it altogether because certain groups of people not gonna like it, you just end up in a state of politics where you just totally capitulating nonstop every time. Like you never actually win anything, And I just think that, this is not his race and stuff. That's just not his lane.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I get him with a lot of like his populism commentary in general, but yeah, as you said, I think that like race kind of isn't his thing, and it almost seems like he is the fish out of water as he's speaking through it. Shout out Donna. Donna says Cenk makes some valid criticism of the Democratic Party, but he going too far to the center with some of his arguments. And that's probably like with this race thing. I like his appeal to populism tends to like when he gets into like the race bag, it tends to sound like the majority white population. And that's kind of like the issue with the whole thing. Unc says he hates racism, but don't understand racism. He hates anybody that dislikes people and is an avenger for the weak, but don't know what he's avenging. H3 Warrior. I wonder if that's like the what is it? The H3. I forget what their name is. Majid, you got to work on your English. Unc, I'll let y'all two have at it.
Unc texting and driving, man. Unc texting and driving. That's what that is, y'all. Like he be typing good. That's how I know he texting and driving, man.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Now, Unc be inside the Discord giving out multiple paragraphs for sure. I'll push play. Let's see where we land at.
For us to stop doing that,
all of our psychology.
To stop looking at me as a Muslim and you as a black person. I want him to look at you as an American and me as an American.
If you want less racism,
so
we have
like just think about how idealistic that statement is. It forces you to be looked at inside subcategories as if like with or without that policy, people wouldn't be looked at inside subcategories, whether that's race or class. It's such an idealistic way of thinking that the world could possibly work if you took away the barriers that made people have to at least acknowledge it and treat people inside some version of equity.
for us to stop doing that.
All of our
For people
psychology.
to stop looking at me as a Muslim and you as a black person. I want them to look at you as an American and me as an American.
If you want less racism and less racial categorizing, or us to see it as less of an initial categorization, studies show that we need to attack racism and race as a concept like head on. We cannot ignore them or input race neutral policy into place. What we find is that characterizing race, saying what it is, saying what racism is, and thus confronting ourselves with our biases is what limits them. So no, we can't say, let's stop dividing people with the corrective policy. The corrective policy is helping something that has always existed, that's happening all the time.
So I told you I have an issue with the policy itself. I think it divides us.
You haven't explained it, though.
And do the Democrats actually pass their agenda? Even if they agreed with you, did they pass Voting Rights Act? They did not.
The problem is capitulating to right framework with which I think was what you're doing here when you said the response to DEI is going to be negative. The thing is when we
Hey, she cooking it, bro.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I haven't seen. I think this is the clear L that he's caught so far. I didn't know that his racial politics was this bad.
She cook him on a point that he likes to make about Democrats is that they capitulate to right wingers and on bills. And she brings that back around to how he's essentially doing the same thing when it comes to this policy. So really, how are you any different than like how they operate when it comes to politics? If everybody just capitulating to what the popular bigger group is, I mean, you essentially no different than the Democrats.
Right. And that's where populism, like there's a part where populism does sound really attractive. But then you forget that, especially when you get into these, like the minority part of populism, like the voices of the minority, it starts getting a little nasty. I'll push play and see where we end up.
Thank you.
Hey, good to meet you. So Democrats don't want to pass.
That shit's a blood sport. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like the way that like they be full sprint ahead when it comes down to getting that chair in these little 2 minutes to 3 minutes of getting to it. Where, like I said, shout out to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Any of the 80s babies, y'all should know. Unc, I'm pretty sure you probably played that the movie when I was over there. Shout out to Bloodsport. I'll push play and see exactly what we get to with this one. If I'm a guess, my guess is going to be that this is going to be a Democrat. But we'll see. Let's see where he lands.
Their agenda. I would say they want to pass their agenda. Mm-hmm. It's just, if you ask 50 Democrats what their agenda is, you'd get 60 different answers. We've got the environmentalists who hate the labor people. The labor people hate the environmentalists. Mm-hmm. We have the gay rights lobby. We have racial justice people. We have all different people. Immigration.
And he's saying we, so he sounds like he is. And that is definitely a critique of the left, is that it is the all-encompassing party. That is, to where, like I said, with some of the issues with the last election, when you go into the culture war shit, the issue isn't that the majority of Democrats agree with any of these culture war issues. It's the fact that they don't want to hedge their bet against, or just make a stand of being like, hey, this is not our stance and we just kind of good on that. Y'all do that shit over there. Because of they want to capitulate to such a broad demographic, even if it hurts themselves. Activists,
like everybody thinks that their issue is the most important one. And I know you don't acknowledge that usually at the beginning of an administration, there's the maximum political capital. And if they don't get something in that time, then they weren't really trying. But what has happened in the past, we saw Biden pass a number of bills in those first 2 years. The CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the American Rescue Plan. Obama passed the Affordable Care Act. We've passed all kinds of things, but we also all disagree on what the hell the Democrats should do. And that leads to the point where somebody is always frustrated in our coalition, because we are not just a big tent, we're a 3-ring circus ring. Like, we have such a big tent that's collapsing in on itself. Yeah. So this idea that we don't want to pass an agenda, the last point I'll make, because I'm taking up a lot of time, I would just look at the places where Democrats have all the power, like here in California. California, when you were growing up, I was growing up. I'm actually an 80-year-old man. That's why I got my Mr. Rogers sweater. It was smog here in LA. Like you couldn't see 50 feet in front of your house. We created not just the most powerful environmental regulator in this country. CARB is the most powerful environmental regulator in the world. And that was Democrats that did that. So this idea that when Democrats have power, they don't actually know what to do with it is bogus. We've seen it here in California. We've seen it in New York with free college. We've seen it in many states. So
damn, New York.
I just don't agree that we don't actually want to do anything.
Okay, so you mentioned about a dozen things there. Let me take two of them as an example. So the CHIPS Act you mentioned, right? The Democrats told us when we were covering it live on the Young Turks, oh, this is such a monumental bill. It's so important. And I was like, okay, nobody's going to vote based on that. So put that aside because that was definitely true, but okay, not pertinent to whether they were trying to do something that the Democratic voters wanted. So that they said that was for national security. Okay, there's some truth to that, right? And they said it was to, don't worry, this is to create more jobs. So now, what did they do? Very typical Democratic bill. They passed over $50 billion in corporate subsidies. The number one recipient was Intel, $8.5 billion in grants and $11 billion in loans. So about $20 billion overall. I said, for God's sake, at least put it in guardrails so they can't fire people. They said, oh, don't worry. Intel's going to create 10,000 jobs.
All right. Intel announced that it plans to lay off 2,500 employees worldwide by the end of 2025. The company received nearly $20 billion in funds and loans from the CHIPS Act.
You know what they did? So now, what did they do? Very typical Democratic bill. They passed over $50 billion in corporate subsidies. The number one recipient was Intel, $8.5 billion in grants and $11 billion in loans. So about $20 billion overall. I said, for God's sake, at least put it in guardrails so they can't fire people. They said, oh, don't worry. Intel's going to create 10,000 jobs. You know what they did? They didn't put in the guardrails. And right afterwards, Intel.
God damn. All right. Yeah. All right. So that is kind of crazy.
Fired 20,000 people.
That's just weird to mention guardrails against firing people when you rejected a union at your company and fired somebody for organizing.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, shit. Damn, Steve. Steve, are you for or against the union?
For.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I mean, that's the. I think probably maybe it's the 1970s. Mm-hmm. I mean, racial politics kind of really undo the labor movement of America, you know. So he do have a point where he kind of making this point where sometimes race, you know, can cause issues. But I think the way he frame it, and I think a lot of people frame it is like this, as if that's black people's hang up. Like, that's not our hang up with the politics. Because most of the times we gonna vote for the most progressive voter bloc in the United States of America, just in general, for the most part. Like, black people typically have a more economically populist belief. So regardless of if a policy is race neutral or for black folks gonna vote for whatever is the most economically left thing, no matter what. So that's not really our hang up. But they always try to frame the issue as if it's our hang up that white folks have an issue whenever race is introduced into like a policy or whatever. Because we gonna vote for the policy no matter what, because we agree with the policy on its surface. And it's on, it's just a weird how they had this type of conversation. And you know how labor has been undone by, like, you know, racial issues or whatever. You know, like some people say their union is great. If you are at a job that got a union, be involved. You know, that's important because apathy is what they want, because it's easier to dominate labor when the workforce is apathetic.
True enough. All right, let's see what happened with this.
It's firing people when you rejected a union at your company and fired somebody for organizing.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true. You could say that if you like.
That is true. Look it up. There's a union now.
All right, production and post-production crew at the Young Turks voted to unionize in 2020. According to a report in Politico, Cenk Uygur intentionally pressured staffs not to unionize. Oh, shit. Let's hear the response.
For organizing.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true. You could.
Damn. Could Cenk be what is it? A wolf in sheep's clothing? Because he does own multiple PACs and multiple companies multiple media conglomerates, I guess you would call it.
He used to be a Republican.
Oh, I didn't.
So he had everybody can grow, and maybe during that time he still had a little bit of like that mindset about.
But no, 2020 he was like bleeding heart. Like,
I don't know, man. Yeah, you could say so, but I think that is
like during that time, like COVID and all that. Like he's been
2020 he should have known better by then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was running the liberal playbook by then. And that's when they say that this whole thing happened. And well, no, that's is Hassan Piker, is that like his nephew or some shit like that? Do you know who Hassan is? Are you not familiar?
Yeah, Hassan, his nephew. He pretty
because Hassan's like full socialist.
Nah, he full gone. He full gone. He out there. But you need all of that. Without that edge, you never get any type of capitulation from Democrats. Even FDR, his capitulation on the New Deal is because of his fear of the rising socialist element of the United States of America. FDR does the New Deal to save capitalism, not to undo capitalism. But that's the historical context of the New Deal. Most people don't know that.
You rejected a union at your company and fired somebody for organizing.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true. You could say that if you like.
That is true. Look it up. There's a union now, but
you could look it up to a bunch of liars. But this is a random thing that you're throwing in there, I guess, to just personally attack me. But there is a union.
Well, that is shout out Donna Murphy. That is the critique to Hassan for sure. That he is a multi-millionaire, gaudy socialist that screams kill the rich, but he's hyper rich as well. But to each his own. The things that he say, sometimes what they say, messenger. I don't know.
But this is a random thing that you're throwing in there, I guess, to just personally attack me. But there is a union. I'll tell you.
The complaint was filed with the National Labor Relations Board after a pro-union employee. Oh shit! Damn, Cenk.
Say that if you like.
That is true. Look it up. There's a union now, but
you could look it up to a bunch of liars. But this is a random thing that you're throwing in there, I guess, to just personally attack me. But there is a union. I'll tell you facts. Do you want to explain facts? So facts are, yes, IATSE is at Young Turks. It's been at Young Turks for over 5 years.
Did you or did you not reject a card check?
Yeah, I did. And so,
according to Politico report, the Young Turks staffer votes were tallied at 9-6 in favor of unionizing. The employees unionizing for a union wrote on Twitter, "We're thrilled to have a voice at to now have a voice on the job at TYT."
In fact, card check, yes, that is the one thing I disagree with in the PRO Act. And yes, you are allowed to disagree with one part of the bill or 5% of a bill, right? And so in our case,
so what we can compromise and have
my personal dealings at Young Turks, okay, fine, we can do it.
It's not personal, it's a public thing.
No, okay, no problem. Okay, but let me address it. Now you got into a weirdo thing that not about policy, not about the Democrats, but about my company. Fine. So since you smeared me, let's explain.
Yeah.
So that people come in and go, okay, surprise, we didn't ask you for anything, but we formed a union. I go, guys, great, prove it. They say, oh, we had a secret vote. And then people come up to me, other employees.
That's what a card check is.
Hold on. Other employees come up to me and go, they're intimidating us. We didn't ask for this.
We're getting way off base here.
I know, because you brought us off base with a random attack against me.
Because you brought up guardrails. Let me just say one final thing.
Let me finish, because you're not going to smear me and not let me explain, okay? So then I said, since people felt intimidated, it's okay.
You felt intimidated.
No. How do you know? You're not even, you weren't there. You're just making stuff up.
Because you're the one that fought it.
So hold on.
You're the one that went to the NLRB and had
it. What the hell is this?
You don't want to shift the answer. You just want to filibuster.
Okay, let me answer. So then I said, for God's sake, just do a vote. No problem. You get a union the very next day. They did a vote. and it passed, and they got a union immediately. As soon as I was sure that all of our employees were not being intimidated or bullied, they instantly got a union, and we've had a union for 5 years. There's people who are like
in response to public
there
pressure,
are people
but okay.
who are making stuff up 24/7, and they keep telling people like you that we rejected a union when we didn't. We authorized it immediately as soon as we had a fair vote. Okay, now back to what you thought was. I thought we were arguing about.
Good talking to you.
I'm not really, but okay.
And niggas, that listen, I'm let me go on my like high horse one. Shout out to JID. JID might have just dropped the album of the year. The motherfucker is immaculate. Chef's kiss. Two, I'm going to like my attempt moving forward. Y'all hold me to this, audience, but I am attempting to swear less, and I'm attempting to not use the N-word as much as I have like basic and regular dialogue. Yeah, I'll be looking back and I'll be like, you ain't really have to do that. I don't know. Speaking of guardrails, Steve, do you play some of those guardrails upon yourself as you have conversation, or as you have dialogue, or you just let it fly?
I try to not be so overbearing sometimes, because you know you're not trying to. You got to balance trying to like tell somebody something they never heard before, but with also not like disrespecting their intelligence. It could just be like they just haven't heard this information. So sometimes it's like, okay, let me use a different tone, because you trying to win them people over to your side or whatever the case may be. And I do think somebody made a comment that he's a multimillionaire socialist. Socialism is not a poverty cult. Like, it's not a you get what you deserve based off the fruits of your labor. You know what I'm saying? Like, the differential between it is, if he's a Twitch streamer, he not exploiting nobody labor. He the one who's sitting in front of the camera for 18 hours or however many hours he sit a day in front of that damn camera. Like, there's a very difference between making money that way and me making the money by being a Walmart CEO and paying everybody like minimum wage. Like, that's a very different type of making money.
All right. So I guess let me ask you this from like the socialism Marxist POV. So AI, I imagine, probably would have to be like some version. All right. Well, I don't even want to go that into that space. What I ask is, with the like what AI is doing in general, and what it's doing to the labor force and the people and like employment XYZ, and what is it broadcasted to end up at? Is eventually, I guess, like, people kind of are going to be somewhat on like a flat plane inside the majority minority, or I don't even know if you say majority minority, like just in general, like a lot of people are going to be out of a job, and maybe if we're just forecasting 20 to 30 years, maybe there's some version of UBI. But as you said, it sounds like with you, there's a spot of, generally speaking, where it's the idea of like exploiting the labor of a people, and that being like a major part of the crux of the issue with the rich being rich and the poor being poor. Where with Hassan, if we're just using that example, because I imagine that's what the person was talking about. Like with him, he's a streamer, so there's a consumer, but there's not necessarily like a worker being exploited unless he has like a staff to do whatever he's doing. And so for that, is there an issue within that construct when it comes down to like that person being richer than the majority that has all of the resources divvied up inside like a fair manner?
I would say no, because it'd
So
be
you don't have a
very
problem with like some people being extremely wealthy
nah,
based off
because
the
I think
knowledge
it I,
of
I, I I
consumers.
think it actually does a disservice to people who believe in these ideas
Mhm.
if we turn it into a vow to poverty, in my opinion. Like, who would then agree with your ideology if
But
you
does it have
just
to be a vow to poverty or a vow to like equality?
you can say that, but
Mhm.
even under Marxist theory,
Mhm.
you still entitled to the fruits of your labor. So like, if I produce more, if I work more than the next person, and I think that's where the confusion is. Marx and socialism is about your relationship to the means of production. It just means whatever you're producing. Like, if I produce something as an individual, that then I'm entitled to more of the gains from whatever I'm producing. I think sometimes people think it's like, oh, everybody gonna get paid $50,000 and that's it. Maybe in a utopian world where all of your needs are fulfilled, like
Mhm.
where AI is fixing, because that is a one of the utopian ideologies. Is, people think AI is gonna solve all our problems, and then you just living in a world of abundance. Like, that's one utopian view, and then you got the
What
dystopian.
I'm about to say, I think that's the best case scenario that your favorite tech CEO is trying to sell you.
Then you got
But
your dystopian view of tech overlords, and you getting your rationing of, you know, your all your nutrients in a little block bar once a day type shit.
yeah, you're
So
running
people,
a treadmill like Black Mirror to power
people, people
the AI.
struggling with this idea of AI and what to do about it and so forth, so on. But regardless, if we saying, and this is why my politics always revert back to this. If we do this, if this how we orient it, if we saying AI is gonna produce more wealth than ever before, because we participate in a society that contributed to those, environment to produce that, then all of the people are entitled to benefit from that, you know, uh, invention or whatever the case may be. But that's idealism. That's never gonna happen.
Mhm.
So a lot of people gonna get screwed. That's the kind of the harsh reality. But I was just in a like Twitter space the other day, and it was like some pretty wealthy people in there, but
Mhm.
even they are starting to understand that it is unsustainable for the gap to be so big. So like, one guy said, what does it matter if I'm a millionaire if people are gonna then start taking millionaires out into the street and execute them, essentially? Like,
Mhm.
what's the value of being a millionaire if the wealth gap is so big, it's destroying the quality of the place that we live in? So like, even they are struggling with what to do about wealth inequality and so forth, so on.
Right, but I imagine before any like like what is it, like the Marxist revolution does involve bloodshed, correct?
I mean,
Um,
that's
I, I
it.
I I imagine that those people inside like this hypothetical scenario started to point out and understand and look at and be like, they kind of mad. They might be mad at like some of this inequality. Maybe it might not be the best, but I sure do love like these like this banquet grapes that I'm eating over here with this pig head cut off. If we're speaking about medieval time, or like like we can equate that to a common day, but how easily, how often do those people, whether you're saying like the Twitter space elites or inside, like any version of capitalism, are they willing to actually relinquish that said power or resource?
I think that the tech bros, just
Mhm.
kind of being in that space, that's kind of like the world I'm in.
Yeah.
The UBI conversation, they've been having that conversation for at least probably the last 20 years, because they understand the impact of the technology that they create. And then they understand the ramifications of creating a technology that's going to mean we need less people to actually work. And then how do we deal with
But inside like these conversations, are they willing to give up
Some
like
are,
like a certain amount of like their
that's like a real Elon Musk, for all his flaws, he is one of them UBI dudes. That's that before he's like as famous as he is now, he is one of them dudes, like where he understand, like, I am creating a technology to replace humans. Like, and if I'm gonna replace humans as workers, how do we then supply ample amount of substance to these humans to like live a dignified life?
Right, but he also has a lot of like contradictory like concepts that fall inside like that exact same framework.
I think since 2016, 2016, since Trump came on the scene, I think a lot of people like brains have been like fried by the phenomenon of like he is such a different type of political figure, and I think that's why politics is so different now. Where you see these kind of different alliances or politics that people wouldn't normally accept. Now
shit, WWE.
Yeah, it's weird.
Rock and Stone Cold joining forces.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to a little bit of this. This conversation. My dog.
Hey, Cenk.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I have a lot of respect for you, but I worry about your progressive populism is dangerous. In fact, to me, you kind of sound like a political pickup artist. Like, just do this one trick and we can fix it all. Uh-oh. And to me, it's no different than what MAGA is doing with their faux populism, with the deep state, with undocumented immigrants. Someone to blame. You're just giving people corporate, corrupt Democrats.
Never mind. I have like a bunch of I think my jokes probably aren't appropriate for this stream that I'm having right now. But there's jokes that I have that I want to get off, but I'm gonna just let
your corporate media as an excuse. And I think you're just taking advantage of disaffected people and not showing them we got to get more involved. We got to invest more. We got to try harder and get good people in there.
But there's a Sydney Sweeney joke in here. Just anybody that understands and knows, there's a Sydney Sweeney joke in here.
So you're saying that don't even try progressive populism. Just go along with the establishment Democrats because they know how to win. That's why they beat Donald Trump twice. Oh, right. They lost to Trump twice. They don't know anything. Their number one thing was, we know how to win. They were liars. They didn't know how to win at all. They got clowned by a guy who's not that bright. Now, number two, we have this giant agenda, $15 minimum wage, all the things that we've talked about throughout the day. Oh, golly gee, we just couldn't pass any of it. Oh, wow. Okay. But hey, vote for an establishment Democrat. Don't get tricked by left-wing populism. Brother, do we actually ever try left-wing populism?
Yes.
Here's the three things we've tried. We've tried establishment Democrats, complete failures. We've tried establishment Republicans, complete failures. We tried fake populism under Donald Trump, complete failure.
I disagree.
So the only thing we haven't tried is left-wing populism.
You say,
don't try it. Go back to the establishment Democrats. Go back to the donor class. Are you crazy? Let's try the one thing we didn't try. The Bernie Sanders wing, economic populism.
You say the American Rescue Plan that took half the kids in poverty out of it, millions of kids who go to bed hungry, is crumbs, is doing nothing? That is a big deal. What about the millions of people who have health insurance now because of the Affordable Care Act subsidies? No, you can call whatever you want, but the reality is millions of people have health insurance today because of what the Democrats did when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2022 under the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. I can't stand that you call it crumbs. People don't want their whole lives given to them. They just want a little breathing room like our big President Biden used to say.
So you say you're super happy with the 5 to 10% that the Democrats gave you.
It's not 5 to 10%.
There's two things here. Number one, I don't know what economic class you're in, but the average American is not happy with 5 to 10% change. They want giant change. They want the actual, by the way, the Democratic agenda is great. Our populist plank, the 6 most popular bills in the Democratic agenda are super popular.
I guess I do get a piece of what our guy with the glasses on is saying, where Cenk does have the appeal of like a political pickup artist. Steve, do you think that big change in the way that he's saying, like not small incremental change, big change is possible inside like a realistic manner, or does it come from like small incremental changes and steps to get to and move like the boat to one way?
I mean, just because of the way the like system set up, it's kind of hard for you just to do like one big swing, you know. Like, so I do think sometimes they have a way of dismissing like real material change in somebody's life. Cause like regardless of how we feel about it, like I can always say, oh, that's not enough. That didn't go far enough or whatever. But that's kind of dismissive to like somebody's life that it did change. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody, them stimulus checks changed their life, you know, whatever the case may be, whatever it is. And I think sometimes it's like they let what they say, perfect be the enemy of good. You know, it's like
yes,
you kind of just setting people up for disappointment all the time, like with this type of like framing of like, you know, getting stuff done. And it's not that I don't even agree with what he want to get done, but I'm just saying like when you win on something and you move further towards your like goal, you should be like, hey, that's good. We celebrate it.
I guess let's keep moving.
Let's keep moving. But you know, it's always like, oh well, that's not far enough. And it's like, well, if that's how you framing it, in my kind of opinion, you just creating an environment of apathy for the people you trying to like support your politics in a kind of way.
Yeah, listen, we was and again, I'm gonna bring this to like a music reference, but I think that we was just listening to J again. Like I said, I'm high on JID, so again, in my opinion, this doesn't have to be popular opinion. I think JID probably is the best rapper alive right now, right? But we was listening to the album, and we was getting towards the back end of the album, and it might have been maybe track 10 or 11, and he had just ran off like a really good string of records, and Johnny was kind of speaking towards like what he has known him to do, and then what he thinks that it should be at the end, and like he painted such a broad picture to where like sometimes your expectation of, you know, like the end goal, and that like when you paint it too broad, you can miss the forest for the trees, or miss the trees for the forest, whichever way makes sense inside like this concept. But like I think that sometimes like you miss out on like the incremental steps that it takes to actually hit that progress point where you look back and be like, damn, like we've made a lot of headway. If you only hedge your bet at like a big impact, a big thing, and where like I said, if I'm using like the music reference, it'd be like saying, hey, he has to deliver huge on these last few records. If you put the metric at that, then you've already put it to where he has to do it, in comparison to like you just walk in and step by step you look back and be like, damn, this was a big moment, if that makes sense. Upwards play
popular with independents and even with Republicans, but they never ever do the most popular bills because they're economic bills. And you say that's good enough, but then why not try the entire agenda? Why not go with an economic populist like Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna that's going to give you the whole agenda and actually try? Why give up ahead of time?
Those are great plans, and we should strive for them. But this is a giant country. We're the third largest country in the world. We have a complicated democracy. We have to do things slowly. I know you don't like that. I know you want to get there, boom, boom, boom. But people do not want to abandon what they're used to. It sounds great on paper. Would you like single-payer healthcare where you save trillions of dollars and you pay less? Of course. But then when you show people how we get there, they're scared. They're nervous, and they have a right-wing media machine on overload that is scaring the hell out of people. That's what we're up against. This is reality, man. Welcome to it.
So Martin Luther King called this the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So they tell you, don't worry, we'll do that tiny bit, and then when you elect us again, we'll do another tiny bit, and 200 years later, this will get done.
And I think he's about to walk down a fair rebuttal to what I was saying.
And then tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So they tell you, don't worry, we'll do that tiny bit, and then when you elect us again, we'll do another tiny bit, and 200 years later, this will get done.
Millions of kids
let me
not
explain.
going to bed hungry is
let
a
me
tiny
explain.
bit,
Let me explain in the context of healthcare. They say we're for universal healthcare. You go, okay, great, let's do Medicare for all. Oh, no way, wait too long. Okay, no problem. Can we do public option? This debate goes all the way back to the Affordable Care Act. They go, oh yeah, sure, we love the public option. Oh golly, we had to take the public option out. There was nothing we could do. Okay, Obama says he had to take it out because the drug company companies were opposed to it. First of all, you're admitting that you're giving into the donor class. Then Joe Biden comes in and goes, how can we do public auction?
We have
Instead over 70%.
We have 50-50 split Senate with guys like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema.
You know how you do it, brother? You know how you do it by trying.
They try.
So,
they try every day.
No, but literally,
you're not on the inside. No, you don't know.
You're stating a misstatement. Okay, so Joe Biden never introduced a public option. If you never introduced a public option, by definition, you did not try. Second of all, how do you pass? Oh, the Senate is split. Okay, you put pressure on. So can pressure work politically? Well, we know because Donald Trump did it to Republicans. Now he did it for his own cause and for his own self-aggrandizement. But anytime a Republican crossed him in the first term, he said, we're going to eliminate Joe Wilson in South Carolina, and boom, he was eliminated. Now imagine if you did that.
You want to bully our senators?
Yes, I do.
That's
Absolutely.
What you want to threaten their lives?
What do you want to do? So can I explain?
They represent their people.
No,
Joe
they
Manchin
don't.
represents his people. They sent him there. How do you know that? You're not from West Virginia.
Okay, hold on. They represent their donors.
So BS. It's an excuse.
Oh yeah, I know. The donors are non-existent. They're non-existent.
More
millions of dollars given to Joe Manchin.
More people donated to Kamala than outside groups in this election cycle. It's a boogeyman, and you're wasting people's time with it.
Nonsense. You know that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, after they voted against minimum wage increase, went to the National Restaurant Association and collected checks. They literally work for their donors. It is super literal. And what you're saying to people is ignore it. Ignore the donors. Ignore them.
Everybody who sends money
it's disrespectful to Joe Manchin, and I intend to disrespect Joe Manchin. I despise Joe Manchin. I despise those corporate Democrats who never ever deliver for you, who never even try to deliver for you. You know, here's what you say. Here's what you say.
I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Steve?
Man, the booty clapping for Democrats is kind of crazy on here, man. Like Jesus Christ. Like, damn, man. Like, I'm like, man, like this is. But you know, some people that's their politics, man. You know, like it's like that's where I do be agreeing with Cenk though. It's like the Democrats is like playing like a good game of where, okay, 48 of them can come out. It's easy for 48 of them to come out and be like, yeah, we support them like minimum wage. If they know they got two of them that's gonna like down it, and they can always point back to those two and be like, well, you know, Manchin and Sinema, you know, they stopped us, but they never used the you know, they refer to it as the bully pulpit to pressure them people into actually like doing, like when FDR was getting shit passed, bro, he wasn't just like saying, hey, I want to get the New Deal done. He was like campaigning against people. He was campaigning against people in his party. It was like, hey, I'm trying to give y'all whatever programs, but they keep voting against it. And that's why he won 4 times in a row. He was the president 4 times in a row. And, you know, so like this idea that you can't like give the people what they want and put like political pressure on Manchin or whoever, it's like, yeah, you say that, but you ain't even try to put like no pressure on them. Like you ain't, if I was Joe Biden, I would have went to West Virginia every week for a month. But you know, he old and couldn't barely talk, so he couldn't even do that probably. But it's just like they don't even resort to that style of politics. You know, this dude thinking they talking about violence. We just talking about saying he wouldn't even say nothing negative about Manchin on TV.
Yeah, and I get this is a joke, so I got to get my joke out real quick. Shout out to like as you get older, you start seeing like and you meet and you're around like the old heads. They got their dentures, and or like whatever version of like teeth care that you have at that moment when you get to a certain age. And I think that once you reflect and you look back on Joe Biden, you know what I mean? Like shout out to all the old heads with the dentures or like, you know what I mean, teeth, whatever, like reconstruction or whatever you have. Because when you listen and look at Joe Biden speaking, to me, you can see him wiggling around them dentures a little bit. Like you can see sometimes it be slipping. He get his dental paste in good. And when he's like doing something like that, a part of that if you know, you know. You'd be like, damn, oh, like he old, demented, and his dentures are slipping. And like that's a different thing to think about when you're in front of like millions of people. Imagine like your whole teeth fall out. But yeah, neither here nor there. Steve, before I put you away, do you guys have anything else you want to land with?
Man, nah, you could hit a play, man. It's pretty decent little. I ain't watched this. I ain't really see too many clips from this one. Only clip I really saw from this one was the black chick. So it's kind of like my first time seeing all the rest of this.
Let's see.
Hey.
All right. You going Republican, Democrat? What you think right here?
This right here, this easy Democrat. This is what a white Democrat woman look like.
For sure.
Easy, bro.
So your claim is that Democrats don't want to pass their agenda. You've talked about $15 an hour minimum wage. So how can you explain then that Joe Biden did in fact increase to $15 an hour for federal contractors with an increase again this year to $17.75?
Yeah. So again, it's a release valve. So why? Hold on. Yes, because it affects a tiny percentage of Americans.
It affects 300,000 people.
300,000 out of 330 million people. So that's why if you actually did a federal minimum wage, moved it to $15, that would move $92 billion from corporations to the average American. Okay. So that's what we want. I assume you want it. I want it. All Democrats want it. It polls at around 67%. So what I'm saying to all of you guys is please expect better of your politicians. So when they give you a 3%, oh, hey, look, I did it for 300,000 people. Hey, look, the drug prices, I lowered it on 10 drugs out of 10,000 drugs. Don't say that's good enough.
But
They're
Cenk,
shielding.
you just said
That's a shield so that you don't question them when they say, oh, I'm not going to do it for everyone.
You just said that all Democrats want to raise it to $15 an hour. That has not been your claim this entire time.
No, voters.
Yeah. Right. But Democratic politicians do too. If Joe Biden didn't want to do it, why did he increase it?
But
for
wait
federal contractors,
so then,
he didn't have the votes to pass it.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. So what he does is he does it for 5% of people with student debt relief. He did it for 10% of people. He didn't do it for 90%. So in the case of the federal minimum wage, let me bring it back to you. Federal minimum wage. So he says, oh, progressives, don't worry. It's bare minimum. We're definitely going to do it. So they pass it in the House. They bring it to the Senate. Joe Biden does an interview during the Super Bowl right after he's elected. And he says, oh, we're taking $15 minimum wage out of the bill. The Republicans didn't take it out of the bill. Joe Biden took it out of the bill.
Trump did get rid of it on executive order.
Let me make sure I read this. It says Biden said he didn't think his $15 minimum wage proposal would be approved in a COVID relief package. It was voted down. Republicans passed an amendment prohibiting the increase, stating it would be devastating for small businesses. Well, yeah, minimum wage in itself is its own interesting conversation to kind of have. Shout out to my guy G. G said, like, you pay them little kids as little as you possibly can.
G said, pay the kids $6.50. Let them work 9 hours a day.
Hard labor at that too. But you know, to each his own.
Okay.
So now they don't have it at all.
Right. So
you're saying then that Trump, you're saying that Democrats and Republicans are both equal in terms of economics, right? How is that equal in terms of economics when Joe Biden raised it and then Trump took it away by executive order?
So, but wait a minute. But you're saying that even though he took it out, and then when Bernie put it back in, 8 Democratic senators, including the 2 Delaware senators that are the closest allies of Biden, voted against federal minimum wage being increased to $15. So can you not see that they're literally voting against it? They're literally taking it out of the bill. They're literally tricking you. They don't actually want to pass it. They get your vote by saying, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then the minute they get in office, they're like, I was just kidding. Take it out of the bill.
What evidence do you have that Joe Biden actually did want those senators to vote against it? What evidence?
2 pieces of evidence. Number one, it passed in the House. And I even talked to Democratic congressmen. They assured me, don't worry, it's going to pass in the Senate. It goes to the Senate and it's out of the bill. Schumer made made that decision in conjunction with Joe Biden. So why did Schumer and Biden take it out of the bill? That's my evidence.
So, Cenk, is your claim then that
and then secondly, by the way, when they did vote on it, his two biggest allies, both the Delaware senators, voted against the $15 minimum wage. That's overwhelming evidence. Do you think that they didn't ask Joe Biden? No, they called Joe Biden, and Joe Biden said vote against it because he was lying.
That's not, it's just not true. But also,
that is literally true, and anybody can look it up.
Are you claiming then that all Democrats that take corporate money are against the people? Is that your claim?
Absolutely,
okay,
yes.
So then why did TYT take $20 million of corporate money?
Here we go again with personal
Well,
attacks.
it's not.
Okay,
it's
no
not
problem.
Let's see where he lands at with that.
personal. No,
No
but
problem.
It's not
No problem. I want to
attack.
answer it. No
Okay,
problem.
please
Okay.
answer it.
Yeah. So $20 million is an investment.
Okay.
It is not here, take the money you do, and then you do what we tell you to do. Everyone has, if you're building a business, you have to take investment to get to the next level.
Cenk, I built
hold
a
on. If
business.
you
I know
don't
that.
if you don't take the investment, you're going to be tiny. So what some leftists say is, no, don't ever build anything. Don't ever take an investment. Don't ever do anything and build a big business. So instead, let the right wing take not only investment money, but direct money like Dennis Prager did, $23 million, and take it from the fracking billionaires, all those guys, and serve those guys. Let the right wing grow and grow and grow.
Well, Cenk, but you have to answer like her direct issue. What she's saying is that did you take money and those donors actually have a say inside exactly how you speak and what you talk about, and you know how you deliver your message to the people. I'm interested to see if he actually lands with answering that outside of just like giving an advocacy to why he would need the money.
But as soon as they're billionaires, all those guys, and serve those guys, let the right wing grow and grow and grow. But as soon as there's a successful left wing channel, don't take an investment, don't take any money, just be super small so we can't compete with the right wing.
Cenk,
how does that make sense?
I'm pro you taking that investment. I've built a business. I understand that. I just think that it's ironic for you then to sit up here and say that everybody that takes corporate money is against the people, because then you would be against the people.
No, that doesn't make, that's apples and oranges.
Why is it apples and oranges?
I can explain
Okay, please
perfectly.
tell me.
So should corporations be allowed to exist? Absolutely.
Okay.
Should corporations be allowed to give money to our politicians so they control our government? Absolutely not. No way. So when a corporation does an investment, that's a perfectly logical and normal thing to do. When a corporation buys a politician and those politicians then vote with them, that is a terrible thing to do. I'm actually I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, but I believe in democratic capitalism where democracy checks capitalism. Otherwise, it becomes corporatism and becomes a monster. But I don't want to defeat all the companies, and I certainly don't want to defeat left-wing media companies. That makes no sense at all. You see how it's apples and oranges?
I don't.
One is a company and the other one's a politician.
Okay.
One is normal business. The other one is to influence.
But I guess like that ends up being like a piece of where his issue comes at, because he will just fuck around and run for different offices just off the strength. I think he just ran for president like last term, where now you do have the blend of like, are you a media conglomerate or are you a politician running for office?
Well, sure. Our government.
Let's talk.
This is an interesting little checkmate she caught him with. I didn't know that Cenk had so many little skeleton pieces that be hanging out.
Companies, that makes no sense at all. You see how it's apples and oranges?
I don't.
One is a company and the other one's a politician.
Okay.
One is normal business. The other one is to influence our government.
Let's talk about.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is on a mission to raise the bar.
Yeah, I think that this is probably like a good ending point for me for this. We can call this part one. I think that I'll probably do a part two to this conversation. It is interesting. I do like the idea of like bringing both Republicans and Democrats pushing back against the populace, just because it allows for like a better exchange of a flesh out of ideas, and then seeing also who the A mic, which is Cenk right here, actually really stands on a lot of things. Where you could see some chinks in the armor, no pun intended, some contradictions, and then where he kind of is able to drag a little bit. This has been a fun one for sure. Shout out to Jubilee. I went on their YouTube, and I'm not gonna lie, the next one, the last one they just dropped, it looked like they doing a wild version of the balloon pop, and I'm not going to cover that. But you know, when they have some of these important people, quote unquote, to pull up, I think that it's fun to kind of dissect the back and forth of these dialogues, and you know, kind of just speak to the merit of like what they're actually saying. Steve, I throw it to you before we close it out. If you have any commentary you want to leave the people with.
Nah, man. Jubilee, they definitely know how to put out like content that's gonna get crazy clicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's weird. You be like, it's so simple. You would have think somebody would have did something like this and been big already. But it's just like,
I think they got the bag to do it, because to get all these people, you could tell like they got to pay them to come there.
Yeah, and they got like the real good production. And then also, I just think after 2016, you really do see that little YouTube politics space kind of go crazy. Like if that was your lane, and that Hillary Clinton, Trump, Bernie, and you started doing YouTube off that, because that's how a lot of these people now we know blew up. Like even Hassan, he don't get big till 2016, like really like that. He just known as like Cenk little nephew or whatever. Now he bigger than TYT. So it's just like, Jubilee definitely capitalizing on the current environment. You gotta salute them for that.
No, for sure. Like I like what they do. Like I said, that to me, I enjoy the fact that they will bring a very strong voice from one side, whether it's the right or the left, and then they do litter inside that audience. If you kind of like are familiar with either one of the spaces, they'll litter some very, I guess, bubbling voices within like the other side, the opposing side, whether it's left, like Xena, it's like it's a couple different people that you'll see, they'll pull up, be like, oh damn, like this is a voice on that side that you hear consistently. We look at like the influencer quote unquote space, or like on the other side, when I'm trying to think of who was the most recent Republican they brought up, but like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. And
if they really want to do a crazy episode, they bring Nick Fuentes on that motherfucker.
Oh, but for sure, but he's canceled on YouTube, so they couldn't. And
he actually can show up on people's stuff on YouTube. He just can't do his own YouTube. He was talking about it. He was talking about it. I saw him talking about it on the motherfucker's a funny motherfucker. Like
I'm familiar with Nick. He just did a Candace, whatchamacallit, and he was responding also to the Candace and what's cuz name?
Tucker. I do find it. I watched the clip of that, man, and like Candace Owens got to have some type of self-respect for herself, bro.
On like which side of it?
He basically just sit up there and just told her to her face, "You a woman, and you black. Basically, it ain't nothing you can tell me about anything." He essentially.
All right, but I will say, did you watch the entire clip? I watched the whole thing. So he, like he, if you clip it, it sounds like he drug on both of those things. And my bad, me saying both of them, meaning like the woman part and then the race part, right?
Yeah.
But like the woman part, it actually was triggered. Like she started it off by pretty much asking him like, "Hey nigga, like you are 20, like almost 30, and no wife, no kids. Like what, how are you living your raps to an extent?"
Yeah. And
he got triggered by that. But then right after that, she doubled back and then didn't move off the point.
Yeah.
Like
I watched the part before that. And it's crazy because she is making a valid point. The point that she was trying to make about the race, that maybe it's something more that's going into it that even she didn't give enough respect to, as far as systemically about the condition of black people or whatever the case may be.
Are you talking about when he was doing the whole black people didn't have language thing?
She was getting in her, that's a different kind of take for her. And I get why
she did a little bit of some appeal for black people.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Because I think, it is strange that it took for like the weird part is like people have been telling folks that like institutions like the FBI, CIA, and all of these institutions is corrupt for like hundreds of years or however long they've been out since the 60s. People been saying that. And then all of a sudden, Trump come along, he says corrupt, and then it's cool to say they corrupt. So she is playing into what the narrative is like right now, but it's like that's a different take for her. In previous years, she just would have been like, the FBI is the FBI and they're the greatest law enforcement institution in the world type shit.
But and again, like I fuck with Candace to like an extent. Like to me, the more that I've watched some of her shit, the more that I've realized that like she's just a contrarian in general.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And like, so at the moment, it was just like the height of the thing was that it was the Black Lives Matter or like whatever that whole thing is. But she's kind of kept the exact same thing all the way down to like right now, she's against Trump inside a very contrarian space. Like she's like if you've been following the past year or two, she kind of have only been giving white folk hell.
Yeah.
And I've been it's been interesting and like, what I mean, it's
like especially
the,
like on the
narrative. But yeah, I'm listening.
The Israel thing right now.
Oh, the Israel, the French woman that's the French lady. She had a hilarious fucking thumbnail. I about died.
I know what you're talking about. Don't even
she dropped Shorty as the ET.
That might take the video down. You start talking about that topic, man.
Okay, yeah. But my thing is like she actually be dragging too, and that's like once I've seen her like just like okay, like she just will sink her teeth in some shit and just drag. And then what I be seeing now, in my opinion, like when I be looking at, I be like, oh damn, like I can actually see a lot more of don't kill me for saying this. Like I can see a lot more of the black woman in her when she's doing a lot of this shit.
Yeah, and I think she didn't got big enough though now. Like it's obvious she big. Yeah. And I think she didn't realize like they here for Candace Owens, they not here for Ben Shapiro when I was on his little show or whatever. And I think that gives you a level of like freedom with what you want to like talk about. Because like at one point it's obvious that her lane is to be, well, I'm the black person who agree with these white people, but these white people can't really say it. So I kind of play that space where I say on their behalf. Like that was her kind of lane at one point. Yeah. But I think now that she's so big and she kind of do what she want to do, and she know her people gonna be there. Her fans are her fans.
Yeah.
And she making an appeal, a racial appeal that she really avoided when she was on Shapiro and them type show. So it's a code. You gotta respect game.
Oh no, like I said, I get it. Like I said, like whether it's intentional or not, it seems like she's definitely a contrarian, and like it's been interesting to see her like go through like series of tearing down all the sharks, the great white sharks, in the water. Like she done did like the whole little Freud series. She like she just be doing her own little thing, which is just like hilarious to me. But again, like I also would say, like she still will have some very off base commentary. Yeah. And I think that even the Brigitte shit, it's like she has a very interesting space that she's hedged her bets, and it's a zero sum game where like you or all or nothing game where we'll see where it ends up at, and like she's been willing to stake her credibility on it. I ain't did enough research to see if it's really ET or not, so we'll kind of see. But with that said, this has been XQ. We watched the first half of this Jubilee. I'm gonna try and within some time, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe won't be Sunday, maybe it's Monday or something like that. Again, I got a wife and kids, but you know, when I can hide away inside the garage to try and come out here and have some interesting conversations with the people. But yeah, I'm gonna try and get to the second half of this maybe tomorrow. Like I said, maybe Monday. Stay tuned. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and tap into the conversations. With that said, this has been fun. Peace out.